It's often hard to be the kid at school who's different from the others. It could be you're the short kid, the chubby kid, the kid with an accent, or the kid with a different religion. These days, that feeling of isolation and otherness can extend into the adult world, especially for Arab Americans. With us in studio is someone to talk about that and more. Nadia El-Zein Tonova is director of the National Network for Arab American Communities, and it is our great pleasure to welcome her in from Metro Detroit today. Nadia, thanks for coming to Feel Like You Belong.
Thank you so much for having me, Alan.
So you have 3 names. Tell me about that.
I do. So Nadia was given to me by my parents. They actually named me after the gymnast, Nadia Comaneci.
Interesting.
But it's also a name that's used in Arabic culture, and so
Goes both ways.
It does,
Yeah.
it does. And so they chose that name for me. And then El-Zein is my maiden name. That's my family name. Zain means great in Arabic, and we ended up naming my first son is the name Zain as well, to be able to carry on that
Same
name.
spelling?
Different spelling,
Okay.
but same pronunciation.
Okay, wonderful.
And then Tonova is my husband's name, and his family, that's on his father's side, and he came from Italy, immigrated here.
Awesome, awesome. So talk a little bit about the El-Zein family history, about coming to the United States.
So my father was the first one to come. He's one of 11 kids, and he came in 1979. He immigrated to Houston. And went there for school. He was actually escaping the civil war in Lebanon at the time. It was making it very difficult for him to go to college because of the fighting in
What year
Beirut.
was that?
1979.
Okay.
And so he decided to come here to go to school. He had a few friends here, came and stayed with them in Houston. And then after only a year or so in the U.S., they raised the tuition rates, and so he moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and that's where he met my mother. And my mother has been in the U.S. Her family has been here for generations. They're English and German.
Okay.
And so they met and married and had me, and I was born in Oklahoma, and then we moved to Michigan when I was 6. And after we moved to Michigan, we started having more and more of his brothers and sisters that wanted to come to the U.S., and so a lot of them would come and stay with us,
Okay.
Which was a wonderful experience because I got to know my family much more deeply in that way. And now we have 6 of his siblings that are here as well. And so many aunts and uncles and cousins, just a huge family here in the U.S., which is
And in
wonderful.
Arab culture, family is really important. So everyone getting
Absolutely.
together and
Yes.
sticking together. So.
Yeah, we regularly get together. And, growing up, it was really great to have that extended support and the extended family.
So at the family get-togethers, what's the language of communication?
Primarily Arabic and English, and so and there's just tons of people all in one space, and it's loud and it's a lot of fun, and there's always really great food.
You've mentioned your own personal Arabic is a little shaky.
It's very shaky. It's not good. I wish I could speak the language,
But they still take you in.
They take me in and they translate for me, which is very kind.
Awesome. So you work for, and I have to get this right, the National Network for Arab American Communities. Tell us about your work.
Sure. So the National Network for Arab American Communities is an institution of Access, which is the largest Arab American organization and based in Dearborn, Michigan.
Does Access stand for something?
It stands for the Arab Community Center for Economic and Social Services.
Okay, it's in all caps, so but
Yes.
it sounds like a word. So
Yes,
yeah.
yes, and we typically only use Access now.
Sure.
But that was the original name. And so the National Network was actually started as, it grew out of an idea from Access leadership looking at how we can have a larger impact on Arab Americans on a national level. And so what the network does is it brings together independent Arab American community organizations from across the country. We have 24 member organizations in 12 states.
Okay.
And we try to build their capacity so that they can not only provide better services wherever they're located, but they can then collectively come together and advocate on behalf of issues that are impacting Arab Americans nationally. So it's all about community building and raising the voice of the grassroots of the community.
We know that in Michigan, Dearborn is really the hub for Arab American life. What are some of the other communities around the country that have larger populations?
There's many vibrant communities. New York, California, which actually has the biggest numbers of Arab Americans. They just aren't as concentrated here in Dearborn. We have groups in Chicago, Philadelphia, Orlando, Houston, Georgia, Minneapolis, San Diego, really all over the country.
Do you ever all get together in one room at the same time?
We do. We get together at least once a year. We're going to be getting together at the end of November in Orlando for our Leadership Institute.
Yeah, November better to go to Florida than
Yes,
Michigan.
exactly. Although every other year we do come together here in Michigan, and so we'll be together in Michigan next November.
Okay. Okay, good. So tell me about your job. What do you do during the day?
So I do a lot of different things. As the director, I oversee all our different programs. We have a capacity building program, which is really, helping any needs that they might have. How do they build stronger board of directors? How can they do better fundraising, marketing? Any needs that they have, we help them with. Then we have what we call our Youth and Community Service Program, and this is really about how we're engaging young Arab Americans and Arab American nonprofits. And so we have Leadership Development Fellowship, where we're placing Arab Americans in our member organizations for a year of learning and development in that way. We have our National Arab American Service Day each year, where young people are actually, people of all ages, but it's primarily led by young people that are going out into the community and providing a day of service and building bridges through service.
Awesome.
And then our third program is our Advocacy and Civic Engagement Program, and that's where we're really advocating for different policies that are important to the community. We're doing that nonpartisan voter engagement work that's taking up a lot of my time right now.
Sure, this is the season.
Exactly. And then that's where we also run our Campaign to Take on Hate, which is a national grassroots campaign to challenge prejudice and bias that are facing Arab and Muslim Americans.
Sure. So at one level, you're doing things that are just basically structural support, guiding people. How can your organization be more efficient, more effective? And that's something that every organization can use. But then you also have some very specific programs for the Arab American community.
Right.
Tell us more about Take on Hate. How old is the initiative?
So Take on Hate was launched in 2014, and it's really grown since then. We have groups that are working on this on the ground in Michigan, New York, and Chicago. And what it does is it kind of works through a three-pronged strategy. We work on some policy issues, and so at the local level, we've passed resolutions, for example, in support of the campaign, Dearborn and Detroit. Detroit was actually the first city to do that, but we've had cities across the country that have been doing that work. We work to change perceptions of our community. So, providing people a space to tell their own stories and really empowering Arab Americans to be able to do that and to talk about, who we are and define ourselves in this context. And then we also work to build the capacity of our community. So we do a lot of trainings on organizing and how to be good allies with other communities of color. We also have a lot of racial healing spaces, and we're seeking to build those stronger connections across communities so that people can work together and uplift racial equity for all.
That's awesome. So what are some of the main issues facing that Take on Hate is taking on?
Well, one of the biggest concerns that we have right now really is the rise in hate crimes. According to Georgetown University, hate crimes against Muslim Americans are now happening on average every 13 hours. This is up from a year ago when it was only an average of every 48 hours, which is problematic enough and still very elevated from 9/11. But they seem to be happening more and more frequently. In the past month, 4 either Arab or Muslim or people that have been perceived to be Muslim, 4 people's lives have been taken through hate crimes, 3 in New York and 1 in Oklahoma. And so for us, having strategies to be able to push back on that, whether it's organizing on the ground, whether it's talking with the Department of Justice and working through some policy work, or whether it's providing people a space to heal. These are very traumatic incidents that are happening in the community, and making sure that people are talking about that even, within their small circle of family and friends, to talk about how they're supporting one another.
Sure.
Through that is really a lot of what we're focused on right now.
Do you have a particular success story in the 2 years now that this has been a program that, in terms of education and outreach?
We do. My favorite story actually is one that's just completing this week. We launched in May what we called Race and Identity Series. Here in Dearborn, we launched it.
Okay.
And what it did was it brought together a very diverse group of people to talk about issues of race and identity, and to really get a better understanding of structural racism and the things that they can do to dismantle that, and to really build bridges across communities and see the humanity in one another. And so we created, it was a workshop once a month for 6 months, dealing with issues from Racism 101 to colorism, microaggressions. It really gave people that chance to get to learn more about these concepts, but in a very approachable way. And we made it fun for people. We had dinner, we had a lot of group activities so that they got to know new people.
Was this a community group or mostly high school students?
It was a range of communities. So we had young people, but we had people across generations,
Okay.
across ethnicity and races. Really a great cohort of people that were coming together.
And what's
for
been the
this.
response from the participants?
People have loved this space. People have said that this has been, the first time that they've been able to come forward and really talk about these issues in a meaningful way with different people, and kind of getting outside of their circle and having the conversations with some of the same groups of people.
I think all of us are a little bit awkward when we're sort of crossing ethnic or racial boundaries. Get outside our comfort zone. We don't know, what questions to ask. So really, you're
Absolutely.
creating a kind of safe space and giving people permission to ask questions.
Yeah, that's exactly what we're doing. We're creating that space where people feel really comfortable, they feel welcomed, and they get to experience one another's humanities while they're learning at the same time. And people have really appreciated the space, and we have been so happy with seeing what that's done for folks, that we're really looking at how we might be able to replicate that in other cities.
That's fantastic. Do you need volunteers?
We do need volunteers, and if you go to takeonhate.org, you can sign up. We're always looking for volunteers, for interns, people to help us on college campuses, and so we would love that type of support.
Sure.
We're
Awesome.
also hiring. We're growing our team.
Fantastic.
And we are hiring in Michigan, New York, and Chicago right now. So if people are interested in that, they should definitely go to takeonhate.org.
Do you need to be a speaker of Arabic for this job?
You don't.
Okay.
You don't. You just need to have the passion to work towards racial justice and racial equity, and the passion for working with Arab and Muslim communities.
Awesome. Awesome. Cool. So we need to wrap up in just a little bit here, but the theme of our show is belonging. What is, as you have done this work and as you come from a background that has sometimes seen some stereotyping and some discrimination, what is your understanding of fitting in and integration and belonging?
For me, I think belonging is really about feeling like you can be your authentic self and being accepted and being free to live in that way. And so that's, I think, really what we're trying to do with the work and what I strive for in my life, for myself and for my family and friends as well. I think everyone has that right to be able to feel like they can be exactly who they want to be, and to be free of persecution, and just be accepted in their community.
Yeah, awesome. One last nugget that you have for our audience.
I really would love to tell people that this is we're creating a movement here where anyone can be involved. This really is about being positive and coming forward and shaping the type of community that we want. We want to see a community that's inclusive of all people, regardless of their ethnicity, regardless of how they pray. We want people this is about communities coming together and living full, happy lives. And so I ask you to join us in creating that type of world.
Awesome. We're going to have to leave it there, but I want to thank you so much for taking the time to share your message with us, and we'll be glad to share this with our listeners or with our viewers.
Great. Thank you for having me.
You bet. For folks watching back home, stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment with some tips on American English, American culture, and a little bit of humor.
You left or abandoned. And so I went through 3 or 4 foster homes, suffered a lot. I think there were many issues there, rebellious, I didn't want to study, I just wanted to be out in the street, and so that kind of thing.